arguing all week that this is President Biden's economy. Is this now your economy, sir?
Well, I think certain aspects of it are. Costs are. I was able to get down the costs, but even that, it takes a while to get them down, but we got them down good. We lost $5 to $6 billion a day with Biden. $5 to $6 billion. And I've got that down to a great number right now in a record time. You know, we're talking about 100 days. But just think of what that is. $5 billion a day we're losing on trade. And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And we've essentially cut off trade relationships by putting that much of a tariff on. And that's okay. We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. You know, we lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey because we're not doing business with them right now. And they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal very badly. We'll see how that all turns out, but it's got to be a fair deal.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now. And I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
Well, yeah, the good parts of the Trump economy, the bad parts of the Biden economy.
Yeah. I'll answer that question for him.
Yeah.
I mean, so we had Jake Duffy on the show last week from Baird, and we talked about the GDP numbers, and you have some people on the right saying, you know, I was listening to Ben Shapiro like screaming bloody murder about the tariffs and everything else, and I'm like, and we dove into the numbers, and the numbers really aren't that bad on really three different metrics. One, business investment is up. Two, state and federal spending is down.
Right.
So when you talk about the Biden economy, what was the Biden economy? It was all spending.
Yeah. It
was all propping up markets. And while the private sector stood on the sidelines doing nothing, holding on to their cash.
Right.
What Trump is trying to do, which I agree with, I don't necessarily agree on the tactics or part of the strategy of implementation, is trying to get the private sector growing again, and those dollars flooding back into the marketplace.
Right. Well, and when you pull government spending back, GDP is going to go down because you've been artificially inflated because of the government spending. So yeah, so in some ways it is. I think he is actually right to say it's the good parts of the Trump and the bad parts of the bad. It's not always all going to be that, but we are. Once we get into court, you know, we're in Q2 now. By the end of Q2, it's pretty much it's his deal, right? Because everything will be washed out.
So what we really need to see is, and hopefully we're going to have him on the show when we're in D.C., which we're going to be doing a bank of podcasts in D.C. here in a little over a month. But Russ Vought and OMB, and how are they reining in spending, reining in the government, and reining in regulation?
Right.
That is going to have probably the biggest effect on the economy in the short term.
Yep.
In the long term, between now and July 4th, they got to get the tax bill done.
Yeah.
On the tariff side, ignore the noise of everything else. The noise really is focused on two entities, the EU and China, who have been screwing us for years. He's absolutely correct on that.
Right.
So how we deal with those two entities is going to be the most important. And I'm a broken record on this show. I actually did an inquiry on this. You know how many military installations we have in Germany?
I don't.
119.
What? In Germany?
In Germany, we have 40,000 people.
You have 119 installations?
Yeah, installation. We have 40,000 people there. We have 7 air bases there. 7.
Wow.
You know, Ramstein being the biggest. Okay, that's what we're talking about. You can't buy an F-150 in Germany, but you can buy German cars here all that you want.
Yeah.
And we need to break that imbalance.
Yeah.
We absolutely have to, or else our economy and segments of our economy will continue to suffer.
Yeah.
Sorry to get on my soapbox on that, but it drives me nuts.
Totally agree.